Hi everyone, good morning. So we will start the class within 5 minutes. We'll wait for 5 minutes and we'll start the class. Hey, hi. So you HRP 20, what is your name? May I know what is your name? Hello.
Hello, hi. Yeah, my name is Hitesh. Yeah.
Hi, Siddesh. So we'll wait for a couple of minutes and we'll start the class.
No problem. No
Yeah.
problem. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
So let me share my screen in the meantime. Okay. Hope you're able to see the Linux terminal here. And today we'll discuss about today we are going to discuss about the basic commands, and we are going to discuss file systems. What are the file systems present in the Linux server, and how does it relate to our real time, and how do we work on the real time with the file systems, and what are the basic commands we use in the real time, I mean in the production, or even for the MLOps, or even in the DevOps. What are the real time commands we use, and the basic commands, I mean to say. And we are going to see what are the files and directories we are going to work daily basis, right? And how can we read the files? How can we harness, I mean, wild characters? Like, for example, if we want to uh, work on multiple files, or if we want to work on uh, multiple directories, right? So these are all things we are going to today we are going to discuss. And also we are going to discuss on permissions, which is very important, the Linux permissions and user management. So we are going to discuss this also. So the first thing, the basic command is pwd, present working directory. So it's a kind of, present working directory is something, it shows you the current path. I think, as I had discussed, what is the absolute path versus the current path. Absolute path versus the relative path. I think if you had missed the previous previous classes, you can go back and refer that. So absolute path is complete address from the root directory, right? It's a kind of full location of your home, right? It starts with the slash. And relative path is something, it, from where you are standing. For example, from where, for example, you are standing in the mid of, in a center, or somewhere you are standing in your, somewhere you are standing, and you want to go from the from your place to somewhere. So that is what relative path. Absolute path is something from the exact path. For example, if you want to give your address, right? So in the Amazon or in the Flipkart, if you want to provide your address, what do? You provide your complete address using the pin code, everything, right? So that is what the absolute path. So here in the Linux, the absolute path starts from slash, the root directory. So you have to give the absolute path, right? And relative path is something when you for example, you want to go to your friend's house, or if you want to go to market, so you just go from where you are, from your home, you'll just go there, and from there onwards you hop on to another place. So that is what the relative path, from where you are standing, you go there. It's not like when you want to go to some particular place, I mean, you take the shortcuts. All these are relative paths. Absolute path, there is no shortcut. It's a kind of complete address. So that is what the difference between absolute path and relative path. And coming to PWD, so our first command is present working directory. So it is something like where you are standing. So that is what the PWD is. Okay. Present working directory. The first command is, and the next command is, for example, I'll tell you, in the production server, if someone asked you to check the log into Linux server and ask you to check the configuration of the line nginx or Tomcat, or check, they ask you to check the system logs, right? Server has been rebooted. I mean, server has been rebooted in the sense server has been restarted. Can you check the logs? So what do you do? So first, what you do is first you check where I am. So first what you do is first you check where I am. I mean, when you log into the server, so obviously you will log into /home/ec2 user, okay, and then you're going to check the present working directory, and from there onwards you will go to var logs, so that all the logs will present in /var/logs/log. So here, this is where if cd is something you want to change the directory. For example, in the Windows, if you want to change the directory from one, I mean, if you want to go to another directory, what do? So you just go to the C window, C, or you just go to the D, D drive, C drive, and you just click the double click and you go there, right? So in the Linux, in the CLI, this is how you go. CD is the change directory, okay? So with the CD, you can go wherever you want. For example, you want to go to somewhere. I mean, as I told, var log, cd/var/log. So here, what I'm doing, am I giving absolute path or relative path? Can anyone tell me? Chandu and iPhone, Vamareddy. Anyone? So what I'm giving here, am I giving the absolute path or relative path?
Relative path.
So why do you think that it's a relative path?
It's not a complete directory path.
So it's an okay. So it's a kind of absolute path, we can say, because we are starting with slash. For example, let me tell you. So MKDIR is something, to create a directory, we use MKDIR command. Okay. So MKDIR, for example, I'll create a sample directory. So sample. Okay, ls-ltr. ls-ltr is something, see, for I'll tell you, MKDIR is to create a directory. Okay, and ls-ltr is, first I'll tell you ls. What is an ls? ls is something to list out the files. Okay, so to list out all the files in the present working directory, you need ls. And when you do ls-ltr, what do you get? So what is the difference between ls and ls-ltr? So ls-ltr is, it's a kind of long list, and we are getting with the explanation. For example, we are getting the timestamps, and T is nothing but timestamp, and R is nothing but recursively. So if you can see, so with the timestamp, when did I create this? Yesterday night I have created, evening, right? And today, what is the time today? So you can check with this date command. And what is the time? It is in the UTC format. Okay. So I had created the directory and the timestamp. You can see. So it comes based on the timestamp. If I do ls-ltr, hope it's clear, right? ls-ltr is nothing but to list out the files in the long format and with the timestamp, right? In the recursively ls-lt. If I give what I'm getting, so with the timestamp, I'm getting the all the files, right? ls-ltr. And now, so you are, you are seeing D, and you are seeing this. How can you determine what are files and what are directories? We'll discuss further. I mean, we are going to discuss that. And now you are able to see, right? Now I have created a directory, right? So it's a kind of directory. So when you see the directory, D is something, when it starts with D, it's a directory. Okay. For example, touch sample txt. So if you see, the color has been changed, and this color and this color is different. Why do you think so? Because this is a file, this is a text file I have created with the touch command. So we can create a, I have showed you how to create a directory, right? How can we create a directory? With the MKDIR command. So if you want to create a directory, so as I told, in the Linux, everything represents by file and directories. Okay. Everything is a file and everything is a directory. For example, if I am executing this command, okay, so this is a file. So I'll show you where this file is. For example, /bin, okay, ls-ltr, mkdir. So you are able to see this one, right? So this is a file. Okay, everything, whatever I'm executing, everything is a file. Okay, where does these files reside? In the /bin. Okay. And now coming back to our main concepts like files and directories. So now you got to know how to create a directory. Okay. So now we'll see how can we create a file. Okay. So how can we create a file? There are two ways creating a file. Okay. One is touch. Touch is something, touch is a command. Okay. Touch and cat. So with the touch command, it's a kind of temporary files. Okay, temporary file we can create. So temporary file in the sense, if you want to create a file without writing any content, okay, and you can create a file with vim editor. Okay, I'll tell you. So with the touch command, you cannot write when you create a file. You got my point. Okay. So for example, you want to create a file, as I told, this sample.txt. Okay. So in this, if you are seeing, there is nothing, there is no content. So here, this is kind of bytes, we can say. Okay. So there is nothing in this sample.txt file. So it's a kind of this file is like just a sample file, we can say, not sample file, temporary file, we can say. Okay. When you want to create a file and you want to include some data in that file, how can you do? With the cat command. Cat with contents. Okay. File with contents. Okay. For example, this is the file with contents. Okay. Cat file with contents. So what we are getting now, what did we get? So we created a file with this. Okay. So we created a file with the cat command, and we had saved it. And when we cat can be used two ways. One is to create a file, okay, and another one is to append. For example, there are some contents, and you want to append that contents to a file. Okay, how can we do that? So by using cat double quotes and file with contents. So for example, if I do, this is an extra edition. Okay. Cat file with contents. So what did we do? So we have added the extra contents. We have appended to the existing file. Okay, you feel the difference. So cat can be used. So this cat command can be used to create a file, to append some data to the file, and also to view the contents in the file. Okay. Hope I'm clear. Any doubts here? Chandu and Shruti, anyone? Vemareddy, any doubts?
No, sir.
Sir, in the above, you written cat greater than file with contents. We need to give greater than symbol there.
Yes, greater than symbol. So why? See, one thing. So greater than, if we give, it is used for open the file and write the contents. Okay. So when we give double greater than, it's a kind of appending. So you are appending, and you are appending in the sense you are adding to the existing file with some contents. So that is the difference between greater than and double greater than. Hope I'm clear.
Yeah, got it.
Okay. So for example, I mean, in the real-time scenario, in the sense, I just told these commands are existed. Okay. In the real time, in the sense, when you go to the production, or when you work in the real time, so you don't use cat greater than or cat double greater than to open a file or to write the file. So you use Vim editor. Vim is a kind of editor. Okay. For example, you use the notepad, right? Notepad is a kind of editor. Okay. And notepad plus plus is a kind of editor. So these are something kind of editors where you open a file. Okay. And you write some contents and you save it, and you do some file operations on using a editor. So that is what we have. Some of the editors calls Vim, and which is a famous one. Okay. And we have Nano, and yeah, so and we have Vim Plus as well, I think, but we use most VI. So it's a kind VI is some legacy, and I mean, which we used in the past VI, and we has Vim and we has Nano. Nano and VI are something bitter. Those are legacy packages or legacy stuff. I mean, legacy in the sense which are outdated, we can say. Okay. So Vim is a kind of what we use mostly in the environment, and Vim is a kind of editor. If you join a company, this Vim editor you should know. Otherwise, they will simply say that you don't know. They will get to know that you don't have much experience on the Linux or something. Okay. So because, and you will be mostly working on Vim editors, and these are basic commands. Okay. Like touch and cat. Cat you use for to view the contents. For example, there is a big file, there is a huge script file, or there is a huge file they ask you to review, or they ask you to do some modifications. Okay. First, what you do? So first you do the cat. Okay. You see what contents are there in that file. Okay. After that, what do? You go, you do that Vim. Okay. On top of this file, you want to write something. Okay. For example, in this file, these are the two lines it consists of. Okay. So for example, if you want to make some modifications in this file, how can you do the modification? With the append symbol is something you want to add some, if you want to add some contents, you can add. You cannot modify the file. You cannot modify this part of the existing file, right? So for that, what you can do, you can use the Vim editor. Okay. VIM. Okay. So you can modify the existing contents. For example, you can modify the ease to, this is a file with contents which can be modified, Okay. So I'll tell you how can I open this? Okay. So with the Vim, when you open with Vim notepad, with the Vim editor, file with contents. Okay. When you click enter, so you cannot directly go and directly edit or something. Okay. So first you have to press I. Okay. So I is something to insert. If you want to edit something, if you want to write something, if you want to do any kind of modifications, you need to press I to start inserting. Okay. And then you can click on side arrows or left arrow and right arrow to go to that point, and you can start editing. For example, this is the file with contents with extra. This is the file with contents with extra modified version or something. Yeah, modified version. And once you're done with your edition, or once you are done with editing, so what you can do is you have to click escape button and shift plus this colon, and WQ is something we use for saving the file. Okay. So when you, for example, you open in the Windows, and you open a notepad, and how do you save? So you do control plus S, right? Or for example, this file is there. So if I want to save, what I can do control plus S, right? So in the same way, if you need to save a file, you need to press WQ hash, exclamatory mark, and then press enter. So if you, after saving the file, if you want to see what contents, what you have modified. So what is the command? We can use it here, cat and file with contents. So here we can see, right? And for example, you had edited mistakenly. For example, you had done some mistake in the file. Okay, I'll just open the file with contents, and you had done some mistake, and you want space, you had done some mistake. Okay. And now how can you exit without saving it? saving the file. How can you do? Escape colon and semicolon and Q is something, it will not save the file, it just quits. Okay. So for example, if you see the file, cat file with contents, did it save? No, right? So it did not save the file. So it just exited without saving the files. So this is something what we call the file operations, we can say, like file operations in the sense, I mean, these are something how you do in your real time in the sense how you do in your when you join a company. This is how you modify a file or you edit a file. So this is something very common which you need to work with. Okay, Vim editor is bit important. Okay, and now as I told, for example, ls I have covered it. ls-l is something long list format, and for example, in your Windows, if you want to see the hidden files is something. If you want to see your hidden files, how do you do in the Windows? You go to the, you click on show hidden files, you do, and you get the hidden files. In the same way, in the Linux, you want to see the hidden files. How can you see? This is the command ls-a. A is something you which starts with dot. So ls-art, ls-lat. Okay. So you can see dot bash profile, dot bash, and dot ssh, dot config. And these and all the hidden files what we are seeing it, right? So these and all hidden files. And now I'll tell you about dot bash rc and dot bash underscore profile. So if you, if anyone are aware of the Linux, like, if anyone is previously worked on Linux, so they will get to know what is bash rc and dot bash underscore profile. And as I told, everything is something, everything represents in the Linux is by file. Okay, for example, you do any operations, any operations. So it's a kind of, it's a file, and you are working on the file. Okay. And now I'll tell you what is this bash rc and bash underscore profile. So dot bash rc is something, for example, every time you log in. Okay. So think like it's a kind of theater. Okay. Theater, or you are entering into a theater state. Entering into the theater or entering into a home. Okay. So every time you open a shell, this is called shell, we call it as. Okay. So we'll discuss the shells apart. What are those? So every time you log into a Linux server, so what happens? These are the two directories. It's a kind of, these are the bash rc and bash underscore profile will execute. Okay. So bash rc is a kind of every time you, for example, you are getting these colors, blue color, green color, and this, these all colors. And for example, if you want to configure some aliases in the sense you had some big command. For example, you have a huge command. Okay. And every time you need to execute that huge command in the sense, for example, there are so many commands, right? Like, if you want to execute it, if you want to execute cd var logs. So if you want to execute, every time you need to execute this command. So you can configure alias. Alias is something, you can, it's a kind of name, right? So for example, my name is Manikanta, and everyone calls me shortcut with MK. So that's a kind of alias. Okay, every time you no need to execute this, you can just execute uh, go to log or something, you can execute. So what happens when you execute this? I haven't configured the alias. Okay. So when you execute this, it will go to automatically to this log. So that these and all things you can configure in bashrc. Okay, and also colors, prompts. So what will be there in the bashrc? I'll show you. So cat dot bashrc. So if you can see, right? So you can see what all things are there. So this environment paths, right? Aliases. So you can see the aliases and functions, and so you have the environment paths. So these all things you have. Okay, you can just you just need to know what does it do. Okay, what does what does dot bash rc does. So you can see if you want the configuration file what is there inside the bash rc, you can go here, you can click sudo cat. So these all things, this is, as I told, it's a complete script. Everything is a script. Everything is a script in the sense everything is a file. So you can see, for example, so you can see all this, how do we log into the shells? Okay, if you are more interested about the Linux and all, you can go through each and everything and you can see how do we log in, how do we, these are kind of color. These are kind of colors. Okay, so these numbers are kind of colors. So as of now, it's not required for you people, but I'm just telling you these are kind of colors. And these are environment paths, and these are these are kind of calling the scripts from one path to from one place to another place. So this is what bash rc does. Okay, bash underscore profile. So what is the bash underscore profile? So for example, I'll open the bash underscore profile. Okay, so what is bash underscore profile? It is just calling the bash rc. You got my point. So what it was doing, so every time when you log in a command, when you log in a terminal, bash rc will be used. Okay, for example, it's a kind of and every time when you execute a command or when you execute something, when you do some kind of operations in the Linux terminal, bash underscore profile will be used. So that is the main difference between both bash rc and bash underscore profile. You got it? Any doubts on this? Okay. Any doubts? Because this is bit important, bash rc and bash underscore profile. Because if you go for a, if they have the requirement kind of Linux, if they want to ask some kind of some cranky questions or some tough questions, they might ask you this, the difference between bash rc and bash underscore profile. So that's where you have to, you need to get to know what is the difference between bash rc and bash underscore profile. Okay, and now we'll move on to the next one. Okay, and now we discussed about okay, one second. So now what and all we discussed how to create a file, and how do we do ls-ltr. How do we list the files? How do we create a file with using touch, using cat, and also using vim editor? Okay. Using vim editor, I had showed you how to just modify the files. I haven't showed you how to create a file. For example, ls-ltr, these are the files. Okay, if I want to create a file, so just vim and the file name. Okay, file with vim. If I do, this is a sample file with vim editor. And what do I do? I'll just escape, save the file, wq, and when I do ls-ltr, so you can see file with vim. And if I do cat file with vim, this is a sample file with a vim editor. Okay, so I think hope most of the people had uh, done with AWS. I mean EC2. I mean done with AWS configuration or AWS logging in, right? I mean hope everyone has opened the account. Does anyone need to open the account or still waiting for, or anyone facing any issues? Anyone? So who are yet to open? So Chandu or iPhone and Vamareddy or Shruti, you people had opened the AWS account or not yet?
I have opened.
Okay. So if you have opened the account, I'll give you by the end of the class, I'll give you some kind of, it's not an assignment. I'll give you some few tasks which you can work on tomorrow, and you can, you can come with the presentation, or you can just show me how do you have, how you have practiced it. Okay. So with that, you will get a hands-on, and you can see Linux only you can get when you do hands-on. If you doesn't work on hands-on, if you doesn't get your hands dirty, it will be very difficult for you people to, when you work on the Linux terminal, I mean, when you see it will be very easy, but when you when you work on the terminal, it will be, you might face very, bit difficulty. So that's the reason I'm telling, like, just practice every time whatever I tell. If i if i um, if i discuss on if we discuss on cd, creating the directories, you explore how to create multiple directories at a time, at a shot. So I'll tell you that, but you practice those things. Okay, so that you will get to know how to do that. Okay, by the end of this Linux session, I'll give you a task such that you need to deploy a web server onto an Linux. Deploy an nginx, or deploy a Tomcat web server onto the Linux, onto the OS. Onto the server. Deploy, web application onto the Linux server. So when you do that, you might face difficulty that how can, what I'm insisting is just practice whatever we discuss in the class. Just go and just practice for half an hour, not more than that. Okay. And now we'll create directories. Okay, we'll create a directory. As I told, previously we had seen how to create a directory with a simple, how can we create a directory? Okay, single directory. So if you want to create multiple directories at a time, how can we do that? -p, okay, and test1, test2, test3, okay, enter. Now you can see, okay, so it created like this: test1, test2, test3. So -p. So -ltr, MKDIR -p. Okay. Sample. So for example, created multiple directories. Test1. sample1, sample2, sample3. Okay, so now you can see sample1, sample2, sample3. So I have just given this. It's not required. Sample1, sample2, sample3. So you can see here. So it created. Let me clear it. Let me clear this. Okay, so MKDIR -P sample1, sample2, sample3. So you can create the directories by this command mkdir-p. Got it? So with this mkdir-p, you can create multiple directories at a time. Got it? And if you want to create directories, for example, if you want to create a directory, if you want to create a directory inside this directory, for example, inside this directory, how can you create mkdir sample1 / test? So where does it create? Inside the sample1 cd sample1, I'm going into that directory, and inside that directory, it has created another directory. You got it? So now you tell me. So this is relative path or absolute path? Anyone? Chandu, Shruti, Vemareddy.
Relative path.
Exactly. So what we are doing, we are just going into this directory, and we are just, for example, how can we get to know? We can get to know by present working directory. So we are in this folder, okay, and we want to go to this folder. For example, in we are in the sample1 directory, and we want to go to the test directory. So what we are doing, so we are just clicking cd-test. We are not coming from here. If from here, if we come, this is an absolute path. For example, if I give this one, okay, /test. So if I give this is an absolute path. For example, this is relative path. This is absolute and this is relative. Hope you can see the difference between those two. So you can go by this. You can go by giving this command, or you can go by giving this command. Okay. cd test. See, there is nothing. Okay. So I'll just create a file. Okay. Touch demo1. I'll just create a file. Okay. How can we list that file? ls-ltr. Hope you can see this. Okay, it created a file. So now, how to know which path I am in? So with present working directory or current working directory, we can call it as present working directory. We are at this path. Now, for example, if I want to go here, EC2 user /home/EC2 user, how can I go? Can anyone? So if I want to go to this /home/EC2 user, how can I go here?
cd change directory home EC2 user.
Okay. So is there any other way? How can we go there? So you're saying we have to give the absolute path, right? So instead of giving absolute path, is there any other way?
cd space //.
Exactly. So this is something relative path. Okay. So cd space / is something going back to the directory, going back one step backward to another directory. Okay. When you give slash and dot dot, it's going 2 steps backward. And for example, if you give again slash dot dot, 3 steps. So on, like, for example, if you are in slash, for example, if you are in sample one, test one, okay, for example, you are in test two, cd test two, and if you see present working directory, you are in this, you are at this stage. Okay, if you want to go back to one step backward, you click this and you check where am I. Okay, pwd, you're exactly, you came backward one step. So if you want to go back to two steps backward, then dot dot is something you want to go back to your, you want to go back one step backward. Okay, for example, you want to go to your home directory, you want to go, you want to go to your home directory, irrespective of, you doesn't want to give absolute path, you doesn't want to give dot dot or relative path, but you want to go to your home directory. How can you go? So this is something, tilde symbol is something which represents your home directory irrespective of where you are. So home, this tilde, what is a home directory? Home directory is something, it's a kind of all your files, all your directories, all your personal stuff, whatever you call it as, everything will be residing in your home directory. For example, in your company, they will create a user for you. Okay, you cannot go and you cannot go and you cannot, sorry, you cannot go and you cannot work on the root directory. Okay, so you have, they will create a user for you, and you have to, when you log into the user, for example, your name, for example, you take the AWS console. So you will be having one user, IAM user, and you will be logging into that. Logging into that, logging into that means that workspace. You got it? So you're logging into that workspace, and in that workspace, you will be having your stuff. I mean, you will be having your personal files, personal kind of directories, all these things you will be having, and you can do whatever you want. Okay, that is, and that is what the home directory is. So in Linux, everything home directory is something comes with slash home. Okay, slash home and slash, after slash home slash, you will be having your username. I mean, your name or user, whatever they will create with the, it will be with, I mean, slash home slash user, right? And here I created an AWS EC2 instance, right? And here I have EC2 user. What is an EC2 user? EC2 user is something which was created by an EC2, I mean, EC2 instance, and I'm at that EC2 user. So I'm, when I logged in as an EC2 user, for example, if you see, so duplicate session. So what I'm doing is I'm logging in as EC2 user. Okay. So when I logged into the EC2 user, any user, okay. So if I do PWD, where am I? I am at home slash EC2 user. So after logging into the EC2 user, so there are two things what will execute. There are two files what will get executed. I told you, right? So those are bashrc and bash underscore profile. So with bashrc, if you have bashrc, then only this terminal will get executed. Okay, this shell will get executed. Otherwise, the shell will not get executed. Okay. Hope everyone is clear with this. Right. And now if I click this, where did I go? I have, so if you do PWD, I'm in slash home slash EC2 user. So this is something kind of tilt symbol, we can call it as. This is something is, it represents slash home slash user. Okay, till here everyone is clear, right? Any doubts? So if no doubts, we can move on to the next one. That is, I'm just checking. So if there is one more command called, so for example, if you can get with ls-ltr. ls-ltr is something you can get the files, the long listing files, and what files are present in here, right? And also the directories. Here you can figure it out what are files and what are directories. Okay, this is a file. You can clearly find it out by when it doesn't start with D. D is something directory, and when it doesn't start with D, it is a file. Okay, and there is a command called tree. Tree is something you want to see inside the folders, what folders are there, what files are there. Okay, so with this tree command, you can see what files, what directories. It's a kind of hierarchy it shows. The complete hierarchy, it shows the files and directory structure it shows with the tree command. Okay, and we have discussed touch command, mkdir, cat, and vim. So these are the commands we had. uh, okay, so these are the some of the commands we had discussed, and now we'll discuss about, we have 3 more minutes, and we'll discuss about rm command. Rm is very important command. Okay, if you want to remove if you want to remove, for example, if you want to remove a file, this file. Okay, rm file with vm. If you click, it's gone. the complete this file has been gone. Okay, these are something very crucial and very, I can say very dangerous, I can say. So rm command is something which removes a files or which removes the directories. So you cannot remove the directory. Okay, rm is, with the rm command, you cannot remove the directory. So what it is showing, it is a directory. When you want, how can you remove a directory? With rm minus rf. Rf is something recursively and forcefully. So you can, if you click on simple sample 3, it got deleted. See, it's not there. So rm and rm minus rf, these both are very, 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 dangerous commands. And I suggest anyone not to use these commands. If you want explicitly, like if you want to remove, and if you doesn't want, see, I'll tell you one thing, in the DevOps or anywhere, in the DevOps, I can say, particularly in the DevOps and in operations and in SRE and in MLOps, wherever you can take in this field, if you doesn't work, it doesn't happen anything. If you doesn't work at all, you will not have any impact. But if you do some mistakes, it will be having a huge impact on your career, and it will be having, for example, I'll tell you, I had seen so many instances of so many cases where people doesn't know anything in the industry and they survive because they are very cautious, and they will, in the Linux, what happens is, if you by mistakenly enter a command, you cannot retrieve it back. It's like the words, what comes from your mouth, you cannot take it back, right? So in the same way, once you enter a command, that's it, gone. You cannot retrieve it back, or you cannot redo, or you cannot undo. You should be very, very careful when you execute a command, right? So people who execute the commands very carefully by saying 1 to 2 times. So like, what happens when you, people are so confident enough, and people will think that, yeah, I know everything, and I'm very good at Linux, and people will think in that, will be in that state, and they will execute command so fast, and they will do some mistake in the commands, and that's it, gone. For example, there are 2 files. Okay, so if you delete one file, for example, if you delete one file, then it's gone. For example, there are some commands like cp, copy, and move. So these commands, what happens is, they will uh, rewrite the contents or modify, they will overwrite the existing contents, and that then it's gone. Your file is gone. Your some of the crucial application file will be overwritten. What will happen? Your application will get down. I mean, your application will go down, right? So you should be very careful when doing operations on the Linux. Okay, so this looks very easy, right? And in the same time, you should be very cautious as well. Okay, so that's what as I told, I have seen so many people in my career got fired or got bad name or got bad reputation only because of the simple human errors. So you can say people, I mean, you are seeing, right, like human errors, where does human errors occurs? Only because of these things, like only because of, for example, people will go and delete some .db file, database file, or I mean, there are some kind of files which log files or .log file. .log file is something we can delete, it's no worries. And .db file, or there are some .sh files, script files, and if you delete those files in the production environment or in the staging or any of your real-time environments, it creates a lot of issues, and you will be ending terminate as well, right? So you should be very cautious when you run these commands. Just understand why you're, before executing a command, you just think twice why I am executing the command. Okay, because once you execute a command, you cannot take it back. Hope you are clear, right? So now I think hope all the people has, I mean, everyone has, I mean, created their accounts in the AWS. If not, just create the AWS accounts. Okay, I'll give you a simple task. Okay, so should I paste it in the chat box and just copy it and just do it tomorrow, and we'll discuss. And if you have any issues, if you face any issues, just come back. Okay, let me type. Any doubts in the meantime? Can you post your queries, or can you ask me doubts, or if you have any queries? Anyone? No? Okay. So Vamaradi, you are getting permission denied for MKDIR file with contents. So you just check whether where you are. You do the PWD and you tell me where you are.
Has-beens.
Has-been. Why you are getting has-been? I mean, why are you trying in has-been / has-been? So, for example, has-been is something, is a kind of, it can be executed only by the root. So I'll tell you what are, when it comes to the user management, I'll tell you that what is a user, normal user, sudo user, root user, and what files can be executed on the has-been or where, or I mean, there are some kind of hierarchy, file system hierarchy, where you can execute only, you can execute or you can do the modifications. So what you can do is you go to, you enter cd, only the cd. You enter cd and then you will go to your home directory, and then you try to execute that mkdir and the file with contents, something like that. And just let me know whether you are able to execute it or not. Okay.
Done, sir.
Okay. So I'll give you a small task, right? For example, I'll just paste it here. print absolute and relative paths. And for example, print the files in /bin. Just print the files in /bin. Okay. And print absolute path. Since I'm giving just simple things because these are, and create a practice print absolute path and create a practice folder. OS. So how do you go? Like, by going, how can you go? Like absolute path or relative path? Okay. So that's how. So you just execute this. Okay. So it's just like it's a kind of practice. Okay. And also find hidden files. Create a hidden file and print it. And create alias for cd/var/log. Okay, so these are two tasks, and you just tell me whether you are able to do it or not. Like, tomorrow you can we can discuss on this. Okay. Okay. Then any doubts? If no doubts, we'll wind it off here, and tomorrow we'll discuss the remaining things like how do we do copy, move, and so we can discuss all these remaining commands, what we have, the remaining commands. After that, we can see if we have some time, and tomorrow we can discuss on user management as well. And before user management, we'll discuss on file management. File system management in the sense, the file permissions and all. And after that, we'll go to the user management. Okay. Okay, guys. Thank you then. So it's time.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.